Hey everybody, this is Scott from What You Seek, and today we're going to be looking at the Geoffrey Roth HH4. This is pretty interesting. This watch is made in America. So Geoffrey Roth, they are based in Arizona. Geoffrey Roth is a person. He is a gallery owner of jewelry and has been into watches and been to Baselworld over 20 times and carried watches in his jewelry gallery and never really found a watch line that fit the custom aesthetic of the jewelry that he was selling in Arizona. So one day he said, well, I'm going to make my own. So it uses Swiss movements, but everything else except the crystals is made in Arizona. So let's get into the specifics, sizing, and then we'll talk more about the watch. The diameter is 45.5 millimeters across. We have a height of about 12 millimeters. Lug to lug, and it's a polished case here, so I'm going to be cleaning it as we go. Lug to lug, this measurement here is 52 millimeters, but if we were to measure the spring bar, this measurement from there to there, it's about 45. It uses a 22 millimeter strap here. The case itself, as you can probably tell, is completely polished. It's made out of a solid billet of stainless steel, and everything on this case is rounded. I mean, I was really kind of struggling to find more than a couple straight lines. I mean, you have the second hand here, which is a straight line. You have the rectangle around the Geoffrey Roth logo on the dial. But everything else, as you look at this watch, is rounded, circular, ellipse. And when we get into the dial, we'll talk more about that. There's lots of ellipses. So the case shape is almost, you know, you'd almost call this a lugless design if it weren't for that scoop. You know, if there was a watch that just went straight across here, we'd say, oh, that's a lugless design. And what's neat about this is this is an ellipse, okay? So it's picking up with the motif on the dial there, but it is undercut. The strap is undercut over this portion here. See my fingerprints? And when you're wearing it on the wrist, you don't see any daylight or skin through that opening there. Kind of a neat touch. I like how there's a lot of thoughtful little details on this watch that really bring it together as a cohesive unit. This area here, this is a phosphor bronze that goes around here, and also the phosphor bronze is the same material that's used on the dial. So we have these engraved markers, and the way they're engraved in here is they have a ellipse, if you will. So it's still picking up on that curved thing. So we have larger markers here for the hours, and then we have smaller markers for the minutes. The Sapphire is a domed sapphire with anti-reflective coatings on the inside. So let's look at the back side of this watch before we get into the dial. This is a mechanical automatic movement. I might as well talk about this since we're here. So this is an ETA 2892A2. This is a movement that is used in a wide variety of watches. It's a thinner ETA movement, and Geoffrey Roth has the movement polished and finished to their specifications. So you can see there's very nice perlage on the movement there. And then the rotor is machined out of a solid piece of tungsten, and then there is the Geoffrey Roth logo on there. So an interesting thing about this case is, I don't know if you'll be able to see it there, but there is a concave portion of this, so it slopes in on your wrist, And then the sapphire on the back, instead of being flat sapphire, there is a ever so slight dome to it, just a very subtle one. So it's still picking up with that whole motif of really there's nothing flat on this watch. We have the logo engravings here, the model number, Geoffrey Roth, water resistant to 100 meters. So it is, you don't have to worry about water whatsoever. On an alligator strap, I don't think I'm going to be swimming with this watch, but you don't have to worry about getting wet. The crown here, this is a screw down crown. Very nice design, very easy to grab. I would definitely call this an oversized crown. Once again, if you look at the detail on the crown, it kind of matches the detail on the bezel here. So it is a screw down crown. And another interesting piece is that the case has a little bevel cutout that allows the crown to go inside to the case a little bit. So this edge of the crown you're not going to see once it's screwed in all the way. So we go back in and you can see the case sits proud of the crown. Nice little detail. On the side here we have a synthetic ruby, and this ties back to Geoffrey was saying that as a kid he was into pocket watches, and he'd open up the back and he would see the rubies in the back and was kind of enamored by that. And so he picked up on that memory, and all his watches have the synthetic ruby on the crown. Nice touch. So let's get into the dial here. So you can see we have an ellipse motif. So this is that phosphor bronze dial with this machined motif of the ellipses, and how they overlap with the ellipses here. It picks up different patterns. So here's an ellipse, but then it's meeting 4 others, and then you get these little ellipses in there. And the way it plays with the light reflecting, because it's engraved into the dial, it's really kind of cool, the pattern that it picks up. The dial itself, you're not going to see it here, but it's one of those dials that when you're out in the sunlight, it's not a polished material on this dial. I don't know if it's maybe like a bead blasted or if it's just the natural texture of it, but it picks up light, the colors from the hard sunlight on a sunny day. It's pretty cool, it's subtle, it's just a neat effect. I've had some other watches that do that same kind of thing. We do have markers here at 12, 3, 6, and 9. And if you notice here, the markers fall in line to that ellipse pattern. So you can see here at 3, there's our ellipse, and then here is the ellipse where that design falls into. They are superluminova filled, and it is super luminova. It glows very bright, and it glows a green, and it really takes on a nice aesthetic of the watch. It's one of those looms that even in daylight you notice it. If you're outside, you look down, these are just glowing green right at you. It's pretty cool. They are set in these markers that are blued steel. So there is a blued steel theme to the hands, the markers, and then the second hand here. And then on the second hand, we just have a tiny little pip of red. So I like the markers here. They're unique. It picks up on this ellipse here. You have the counterbalance for the second hand running around, and that is loomed as well. So even at night, you can see if your watch is running or not. You have the Geoffrey Roth logo there, the name, the logo up top. And then on you have smaller markers here, and those are loom filled as well. So a lot going on with the dial, especially when you look at it close up, right? The pattern looks kind of busy, but at wrist length, it kind of falls into itself, and it just becomes a really nice pattern on there. One thing I want to mention about the dial is the flange, the area between the dial and where the crystal meets at the top. So it's this circular flange, and you can see if you look at the, I'll use my chopstick here. So if you look, you can see there's the hour marker for 12, but looking back of it, you can see that that is a reflection of this stainless steel flange that runs around the dial here. It is polished to a mirror polish. So it's really neat. You get this effect of looking into the watch and it's reflecting back. So at night when there's lume, it reflects back in. Another nice touch is having the date down at 6. It keeps the dial very symmetrical. So the whole circle ellipses, and then the material, this blued steel that holds this ellipse in, curves around to reveal the date. So the strap is a Louisiana alligator that was made in the USA to Geoffrey Roth specifications. It comes on a deployant buckle, a double buckle here, folds over like so, and you do have the Geoffrey Roth logo engraved on the back of the buckle. Very comfortable strap, high quality strap. You can see it's padded here. We have some matching stitching on the sides. Very, very nice strap on there. Fits the same aesthetic, I think, and the quality of the watch. So let's get this on the wrist. Okay, so here is the Geoffrey Roth HH4 on my wrist. And when I first got the watch and I started measuring it, and it measured, you know, almost 46 millimeters. So I'm like, there's no way. And I literally grabbed one of my Tutima dive watches, which is 45 or 44, I can't remember. And sure enough, this is bigger, but it seems a little smaller. It does have a large bezel here. So I think that the dial, because it's smaller, doesn't go to all the way out to the edge. It wears smaller. And then the fact that everything is rounded, right? There's no straight cut angles to it. So the way that optically, the way it looks on your wrist, you know, this sloping up to the bezel here, it feels smaller on the wrist. I will say there is some heft to this. I mean, solid piece of stainless steel. It has a little bit of a heft, but not in a bad way. It's like, oh yeah, I've got this watch on my wrist. I like the lugs. You notice the lug spacing on my wrist here, the way the strap goes straight down. It snugs it close to the wrist, so it's not moving around. And you know, 12 millimeters high, it's not a very thin watch, but I wouldn't call it overly thick either. So, and the fact that everything is curved here, it would fit under a shirt cuff, I think, no problem. So all in all, the wearing experience is very comfortable and easy to wear. So what are some of my likes and dislikes of this? So dislikes, I really had to think what I would change if I could be a watch designer. And really the only thing I thought, well, maybe if it was a little thinner, right? The ETA 2892 is a very thin movement, so there's probably some of that room. But then I started thinking, well, I like the detail of that polished stainless steel that's a mirror in there, and then if you make it thinner, then you lose that. So I had a hard time really finding things that I would want to change. Perhaps a little smaller, but then my lug distance, I wouldn't have the same proportions with this cutout of the ellipse. So, you know, this is not a watch designed to be sold by the 100,000s in a department store. This is more of an artisan, or it is an artisan piece, you know? I mean, Geoffrey makes, polishes, finishes, assembles everything in Arizona. So what do I like? Well, first off, I love the lume. The lume really does take on a really nice look of the watch. You walk inside, you run into the grocery store, you walk in, you look down, and these markers and the hands are just glowing really bright. I love the symmetricality of it with the date at the bottom. And he tells you on their website what is made by them in Arizona. So totally upfront, totally honest with what's going on with this watch. Another thing that's pretty interesting with this is, I'm going to read it so I don't mess this up, but it has a 6-year warranty on the watch, which is extended for 6 years if you have your watch serviced by Geoffrey Roth between years 5 and 6. So I think that's pretty cool. You're going to need to get your watch serviced anyway. You know, you've got seals here for the waterproofness of it. Is waterproofness a word? So send it back to them. They check it over. They, make sure everything's working, and then you extend your warranty. So pretty cool watch. So the Geoffrey Roth HH4 is $6,000 US. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, leave comments below, and be sure to subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching.